What's up, guys? This is Will Witt. We are here today discussing Fleeing California, our latest mini documentary with PragerU. We're joined by Tomi Lahren, an amazing guest, Fox Nation correspondent. Would that be the right word? Or Fox Nation host?
Commentator, the purveyor of final thoughts. It all works for me, Will.
Yeah, there you go. So you were in my mini documentary, Fleeing California, as one of the experts we had to come on and talk about California. But if you don't follow Tomi on Instagram, then you won't know that she actually left California. Very disappointing for me because now I feel even more alone in California with my conservative views. Why did you decide to leave California?
Well, how much time do you have, Will? I think we can look at the documentary and see at least 5 to 10 reasons right off the bat why someone would flee California. But I was in California for nearly 3 years, and people often ask me, why did I go to California in the first place? I was in Dallas, Texas. You'd think that there were many other places that would be more suitable for a conservative than Los Angeles, California, of all places. But the reason I really wanted to go there is I started seeing, especially after the 2016 election, that a lot of things were happening in California, in Silicon Valley, in Los Angeles, and it seemed like that's where not only culture, but politics was shifting. So for me, I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to influence it, and I wanted to be behind enemy lines, so to speak. And after almost 3 years, I think I've figured a lot of things out that I would have never known if I hadn't lived in the state.
Well, what is your advice? Because I'm someone of the people ask me this all the time. They say, you talk all this crap about California, but you still live there. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be here to save it, to help fix it, to make this documentary and see if I can do something about it. Is your advice that people should leave if they have these conservative views, or do you think that people should, for the most part, try and stay and fight?
Well, I always said stay and fight. I said we're never going to fix California if all the conservatives leave. And I still believe that. However, there is a difference between not being willing to stand up for yourself, which has never been a problem for me. And there's also a part of it that really got to me, which was, do I want to fund this anymore? Because to me, I'm aiding and abetting what I see as just the coming socialism, coming problems. I see illegal immigration. I see infringements. I see leadership that never met a tax or a regulation they didn't like. And I started to see that I didn't want to be a part of funding that anymore. So that's why I chose to left, and mostly it was a financial decision. I just didn't want to fund it. And I think that that's where a lot of people in that position they're in. They've lived in California maybe their whole lives. They had a business in California, but it's one regulation after another, one tax after another. It's the felon-friendly laws. It's the homelessness. It's just the environment that has been created by liberal policies that I think could be turned around, but not if people don't wake up. So even though I'm not in California anymore, I'm still very much dedicated to exposing a lot of the things that are happening there, because they are really a model for the rest of the country. New York and California, it's coming to a state like you if you're not paying attention.
If you guys haven't seen the mini documentary Fleeing California, it's on PragerU.com/Fleeing California. And so Tomi moved to Nashville. I don't like Nashville that much. I've been twice. I'm not a fan. I don't really like country music. And what is it, Sixth Street, right? That's the big
Broadway,
party.
Main Street, yes.
Oh, Sixth Street is Austin. I was thinking of Austin, Texas. Yeah, Broadway over there. It felt just like Hollywood. I mean, it was dirty and gross like Hollywood in a lot of ways. Do you see any sort of similarities with like urban environments, even in these more conservative states, as well as like a California?
Well, Nashville's blue, so that's another thing.
Yeah.
Nashville is the only places in Tennessee that is blue, and so that's obviously because a lot of Californians are moving. In fact, Nashville is the fastest growing city in the country, and not only that, you're seeing a lot of people that are fleeing to Tennessee, to Nashville from California, and unlike me, a lot of people are bringing their liberal values with them, so you see a lot of transplants because of Nashville, because of the music scene. But ironically, people move here because they want less regulation, they don't want a state income tax, but then they come and they vote for the same policies that bring those things to their doorstep. So that's why it's so important to educate. But the thing about Tennessee and the thing about even Nashville is I think in the South, people are just generally more friendly. I met a lot of great people in California, but there's something about that Southern hospitality that you just don't see in a place like Los Angeles, especially if you are a conservative and you're proud of it.
Yeah, no, the people in Los Angeles, I mean, I'm sure they hated you. They hate me too. Like I went out to a bar one time and I met a girl and she saw my Instagram like right off the bat. It was a good, she was nice. And then she sees it and just tells me to F off, and just horrible people. Like they claim to be the open-minded, tolerant people, but when it comes to anyone with a different point of view, it's completely shut down right off the get-go.
And so
Yeah,
many
go ahead.
conservatives in California too. I mean, I have met actually far more conservatives than I have liberals in California. They're just so terrified to say anything, but you can usually pick up on it because they have many of the same complaints that you and I had and that I had in California. So there are a lot of conservatives that are just too afraid to stand up and say anything because they've been intimidated by Hollywood, by their friends, by this dominant culture, especially in the public school system. It's bad all over the country, but it's especially bad in California. I talk to a lot of high schoolers that say their teachers have posters of the Black Panthers on the wall, posters of AOC on the wall. I mean, Black Lives Matter. It's an indoctrination that is happening all over the country, but in California, it's really bad. We also teach, gender identity and sexual expression and things to people that should never really be learning that at that age, but that's commonplace in California and in many places mandated.
It's funny, they did the polls on the people who are leaving California, and actually, like, the most amount of people who are leaving California are the conservatives, basically making just the state all full of leftists now. I found that, like, in Texas and in Arizona, Nevada, the people who are really leaving, or the leftists who are coming to those states, are from like Illinois and New York instead, and it's mostly the conservatives who are leaving California. Do you think that there's a chance for California, or do you think that it's pretty much a failed state at this point?
I think it's going to have to get really bad. And in fact, the sad thing about it is, as I'm watching what's going on right now with the pandemic and coronavirus, I'm watching leaders like Gavin Newsom, and in LA, I'm watching our mayor Garcetti. I'm watching the things that they're putting in place. And, I have a theory, and I don't think it's too far off. I think that California was failing, as you and I both know, long before coronavirus ever entered the state of California or the world. However, I think that all the problems that were before coronavirus will now be blamed on coronavirus. They will let the state collapse, and then they will say, well, we need federal dollars because it was coronavirus. No, no, no. We had a lot of problems before that. We had unfunded liabilities. And for those out there who don't know what unfunded liabilities are, when you have huge pension programs that come due because you have leaders that were really beholden to the unions, which they still are, you have those bloated pension programs and unfunded liabilities that's going to come home to roost in the next 5 years, and the state is going to collapse because they can't afford it. And a lot of people tout California, well, we're the fifth largest economy in the world. That's fantastic. We have a lot of natural resources. We have Hollywood. We have technology, all wonderful things. But then I ask those same people, if we are indeed the fifth largest economy and we have all those things, why do we have so many issues, so many problems? Why do we have income disparity the way we do? Why do we have a homelessness epidemic? Why do we have a drug epidemic? Why do we have an illegal immigration epidemic in the state of California? Well, imagine what we could do with some good conservative leadership with the fifth largest economy in the world.
Well, they're all so scared to stand up. I mean, this is my number one issue on my speeches. Like, the last thing that I always end with is to never sacrifice your values. If every conservative in California, I mean, I think it was what, like 30 million votes for Donald Trump in 2016, something along those lines. I mean, it was a huge amount of people who still, or it was like 30% of the population still voted for Trump in California. It's a ton of people. If people actually started standing up and saying what they believed in, like, you could get something done here, but everyone's just too scared of being ostracized by their community, their friends, or their work. What is your advice to people like that?
Well, and going off of what you said too, not only are there Donald Trump voters in the state of California, but there are huge fundraisers for Donald Trump, even for this last election cycle in this last few months. I mean, Donald Trump raised a lot of money in California. So there are definitely conservatives there. However, the thing that I'm worried about probably more than the intimidation factor is voter fraud. And I've spent a lot of time covering election integrity in California. And I'll tell you, it's becoming the model for the nation. And we're seeing it right now being amplified with this coronavirus situation, the vote by mail push. In California, we have vote by mail, but not only that, we have legalized ballot harvesting. And for those who don't know what ballot harvesting is, essentially you get your mail-in ballot, some wonderful community organizer comes to your door and offers to help you fill out that ballot. Well, in the state of California, that's perfectly legal. And you don't even have to sign off on it. You used to have to verify signatures. They got rid of that in the state of California. So we've got huge voter fraud problems. And you saw in the midterm elections, a lot of those conservatives that were winning on election night, when all those mail-in ballots came in, suddenly a lot of races were flipped, and it cost us a lot in the House. So I would just caution people, pay attention to what's going on, this vote by mail push that's coming to all these states because of coronavirus. The Democrats are very sneaky, and they're going to slip it in when you're not paying attention.
It's definitely a frightening thing for sure. In terms of the coronavirus stuff, the quarantine, the social distancing, I look nice up here, but I have sweatpants on, everything down below. It's very comfortable being here for the last, 3 weeks we've been doing this now. In California, it's supposed to go until May 1st. We're going to be at home. where it is in Nashville, you said you have like a week left. What do you think about this whole social distancing, quarantine stuff? Is it worth it? Are we making headway? What's going on?
Well, I think that it is important to flatten the curve. I think we all believe that. And if we can all do our part, I think that it's smart. However, I think our president is handling it wonderfully. I do think it's time to reopen America. I've said this time and time again. I know sometimes it's a controversial stance and people get shamed into just following the crowd and listening to the doctors and scientists to a point where they almost lose their critical thinking skills. Yes, I think it was important to flatten the curve. I think what Donald Trump did and in many of these stay-at-home orders, I think that that was wise because we didn't want to overwhelm our hospitals. We wanted to make sure we had the equipment on hand. I'm glad that that's coming to fruition now. However, I would like to see us reopening America because everybody's job is essential to them. And you can get your government stimulus check, but as you and I both know, a dependence and a reliance upon the government is not something that we want to foster long term. So I'm hoping that we have America reopen. I think we can do it in a staggered way. I think we can start opening up certain businesses and move along to the places that might attract more people and larger gatherings. I think we need to stagger it along so it's not all at once because we're going to see a huge spike. But I think that right now you're seeing a lot of Americans who want to get back to work. And I say to those of you who have underlying health conditions, those of you who are afraid and deathly afraid of getting coronavirus, feel free to stay at home for as long as you need to. But I think we do need to plan for the rest of the country to start reopening because you can't neglect the economic problems that this is going to create and the consequences that are going to last far beyond this election and far into the future. I don't know if it's something that we can recover from. I would hope that the Democrats would be alongside us and wanting a strong economy, though sometimes I doubt that. I'm hoping that we can reopen sooner than later.
It's like the Ted Cruz line from the mini documentary where, oh, my dog knocked off my ball. The Ted Cruz line where he says, even the Democrats like jobs. They don't know how to get them, but they like them. It's like they want to get the economy back open, but not in the same way that we as conservatives do. You know, the media companies right now are making an absolute killing. The New York Times, the CNN, the Washington Post, they're making tons of money because everyone's reading their hysterical articles. Do you think that the media and the people who work in that field are fueling the problem, are making this worse for everybody, or do you think there's been a lot of accurate representation in that?
Well, I think that panic is bad for everyone involved. There is a very calm way to address this. I think Donald Trump has done an excellent job, though he's taken a lot of hits for it. He was, regardless of what he was going to do, he was going to take criticism because we know Trump derangement syndrome is even more infectious than coronavirus in many cases. But I think being calm, when you see the media and they hype up all the deaths and we want to be informed, but at the end of the day, when you cause a panic, you're not helping anybody and you force people into hoarding and panic buying and really treating each other horribly because they're afraid that the supplies and the resources are going to be gone. I mean, that's not helpful for anyone. And the thing about it too that frustrates me is you'll see a lot of headlines talking about younger, healthier people that have been infected or even some that have died. I wish they would give the full story because in many of these cases, that young person had diabetes or an underlying health condition. Just be honest with the reporting. We want to be informed. We want to know what the risk is, but you don't have to sensationalize it to terrify people. That's not helpful.
I think parts of it show a bad side of America too, this whole sensationalism. Like, how many rolls of toilet paper do you really need? Like, I live alone. Like, I'm not going out and buying tons of toilet paper. Like, what do I need that for? But a lot of people are acting that way. A lot of people are being very selfish during this time. And one of the main problems that I've seen is that, we get a ton of our medical supplies from China, all sorts of things from China. What do you think about that as a sense? Should we be more independent from China? Should we trust them at all? What should we do?
Well, absolutely. I'm always for independence. I'm always, especially for, regimes like that. I think that we've really seen how China handled their own coronavirus issues in Wuhan and the way that they reported it or maybe underreported it. So although I don't claim to be an expert on what they did, I don't think anybody really fully knows. But I think that it's always a good idea to be more economically independent. And I think we do need to hold China to account if we find out that, in fact, it is provable that they downplayed their numbers or they downplayed the spread or whatever they did or did not do, to hold them to account because they're really destroying if in fact they were responsible in any way or they took some responsibility in that, they're destroying a whole lot of people's lives around the world. And that's something that needs to be investigated. And I think that all Americans should join together in that because they see the devastation that this has caused to our country and to the world.
I mean, look, they kicked our journalists out and then they start claiming that there's zero new deaths. Like, to me, that sounds like super suspicious. I don't trust what China's doing at all. I think American independence from China has to be like one of our biggest priorities moving into the new year and after this whole thing's over. But I mean, it'll be a tough thing for sure. Where can people find more Tomi stuff, more videos, more interviews, everything?
Sure. Well, I do Final Thoughts every day on Fox Nation. That is our digital streaming platform for Fox News. So you can download that and stream. I also have a lot of documentaries on there, similar to Fleeing California. My election integrity is up. I'm going to have a new episode with Theo Vaughn coming out pretty soon. For those of you who don't know Theo Vaughn, he's a fantastic comedian, and it'll give us some lighthearted comic relief from all of this. But Final Thoughts every day. I just posted my final thoughts from yesterday, talking about, again, another California push to release inmates and prisoners, because somehow that's going to make us so much better in this challenging time. But that's all on Fox Nation, and you guys know where to find me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And I hope you guys do check out Fleeing California, because it was a great job that you guys did. And I hope that people will understand the problems of California, because if you don't, you're doomed to repeat them in your own state.
Yeah, that's exactly right. PragerU.com/fleeing California. It's funny, the interview that we did with Tomi for the mini doc, I wasn't even there. It was the only interview that I wasn't able to actually go to and interview Tomi for it. So kind of sucks, but it's all right. We still got the best interview with our producer and editor there. And that's about it, Tomi. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts now?
Hold it down. We've got to. And just so everybody is aware too, I follow California politics and greasy Governor Gavin Newsom every single day to see what he's doing and the infringements that he's piling on. So I'm very aware of what's going on. So they haven't gotten rid of me that easily.
Yeah, I have to go get my bandana face mask and wear it now, or Gavin Newsom's going to bust through the door and arrest me. So I have to make sure. All right, Tomi, thank you for joining us. And everyone, thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. You can go to PragerU.com/fleeing California. Again, make sure you share this video, follow us on social media. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.